30 seconds and counting. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds. 20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Oh, what up, Bills Mafia? Wednesday night smoke break, baby, live on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel. Hope I find you well this evening. Hope you're doing good. Missed you last week. Hope you guys all tuned into the interview with Ike Butker. That was a great one. If you tuned in, hope you enjoyed it. He was a ton of fun. That's a guy you want to just go out and hang out at the bar with for endless hours. He had crazy stories. For starters, who in God's name would have ever guessed, as I get my lights situated here, who in God's name would have ever guessed that Ike Butker was a quarterback? When he said that, if you watched the interview, I literally did a double take. Could not believe what I was hearing. The transition from quarterback to lineman is unlike anything I've heard. But nonetheless, like I told him, as we watch the season go on, God forbid, if J.A. and Mitch Trubisky go down, Ike Butker, he's waiting in the reins to throw that pigskin. So always nice to know you got a relief pitcher. The talk of the town, of course, the last week or so, it's been the schedule. And then this week, slow news week for the NFL. And that's kind of where we're at right now. We are in that no man's land type time of the season where there is not a ton to talk about. So PFF thought it would be a good time to put out their quarterback power rankings. And of course, that stirred up some controversy. It feels like anytime Josh Allen isn't at number one, that's going to stir up some controversy with Bills fans. So tonight ought to be a super fun one, as they always are, but I'm excited to get Clay Troia on the show for the first time. I can't believe it's taken me this long, but Clay has absolutely been killing it with the film analysis for Buffalo Fanatics, and I'm sure you saw a bunch of his stuff throughout draft weekend. It was killer stuff, and he had interviews on almost everybody the Bills took, and it was our first look at who was joining the Bills through the draft. So bringing on Clay now, and here he is. Clay, my brother, what is happening? How you been, man? Are you muted up? Clay is muted.
Oh, I was muted. Thank you for that. How's it going, man?
I thought you might have died on me there for a second.
No. Still, you can't get rid of me that easily.
I figured it would be tougher than that. I was just kind of alluding to it. I haven't really had the chance to talk to you in person since the draft, but dude, can't thank you enough for the work you put in with all those videos, man. I mean, that was really my first look at some of the dudes the Bills took through the draft, and you really crushed those, man. Great job.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, something that's I think it was Dave Tilt reached out to me and said, is this something you want to do? I thought it was cool just because I wanted to take a closer look at some of the guys that we might have been able to pick, just because I don't really watch college football that much. So that was kind of my first opportunity to go and take a look at those guys. And it was funny too, because as I'm going through, I really liked Russo's film, and I was kind of hoping toward the end that was going to be one of the guys that they had the opportunity to get. So that was pretty cool.
So did you whip that up prior? Like you just kind of, you had ones ready for guys that might go? Because I know you had some for other guys who went to other teams too, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much just guys that had been, the Bills were talking to, or they might have picked. I did Farley, Sante Samuel Jr., Greg Newsome, and then I did a few other guys as well.
Awesome. Well, it was terrific. And I know that for me, I mean, Greg Rousseau, I mean, that was kind of a wild card for me. I don't get into the draft like crazy, especially like Till and Judge and those guys. I mean, listening to them is like, sometimes it's like listening to Chinese. I don't know what's going on.
They go like deep into the draft too. They got like, oh, I love this guy in the late 6th round. And I'm like, how do you find these guys, man? They're insane.
They know who's playing quarterback at my high school here in Rochester. That's why they're waiting for him to get up the ranks. And I'm here like, man, I'm wondering who the Bills are taking at 30, but I was really pleased with the draft. And I haven't talked to you since. What was your overall thoughts of the draft class for the Bills? Were you overall pleased with the outcome?
Yeah. I mean, at first I was confused. I feel like a lot of people were a little confused at first just because they went edge, tackle, which no one really expected them to do. But it kind of makes sense. I don't know if it was something that he had planned on or not, but I think what he ended up doing, at least, was Brandon Beane drafted the expensive positions. And now that he has to sign Josh Allen and Tremaine Edmonds soon, it could be a good opportunity for him to maybe get rid of some of those guys that are not on rookie contracts anymore for those more expensive positions. So overall, I'm pretty happy. And I think some of the late round guys are, have potential to make the roster and in some cases contribute. Of course, Bills Mafia is going to look at the undrafted guy that they're going to get behind because everyone does it. There's always a guy every year where Bills Mafia just goes crazy for a practice squad undrafted guy. So.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you look at a guy like Duke Williams or somebody like that. There's always a guy who everybody rallies behind, and that's what you got to love about Bills Mafia. I mean, you get those unsung heroes, and when they do get an opportunity, they usually take advantage of it, and that's why we love them. I mean, you get them out there, and that's one of the best parts about the fan base. It's unique that we rally around these guys that I don't think anybody else would ever think to, kind of wrap their arms around. Michael Gleason coming in. I really, really, in all caps, love Clay. The work he did over draft weekend did not go unnoticed by Mike Gleason.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. He's one of my buddies. My friends have been telling me to send them the links whenever I go live, and so I see that they've joined. So thanks, guys.
Well, I do the same for my buddies, but what they do is they'll come in here under aliases, and I can never figure out who it is, and they'll start fights. So
don't give my friends any ideas. Don't give them ideas, man.
I'm sorry. Hey, Mike Gleason, feather in your cap there, bud. Come in here under Geikel Meeson, and you can start firing off whatever you want. James, in here as always. Z-Bot, bro, that interview was fire. Glad to have you back live. Glad to be back live, James. Thank you so much, man. Always contributing to the show. You rock, James. Appreciate you. Who else we got in here? We got my man D Handsome. He was pumped for the show tonight. Richard Rush is in here. We got a solid crew as we do every week, and we're really excited to have you in tonight, Wednesday, May 19th. Good God, Clay. The month of May. I mean, I don't know. The only reason I knew it was Wednesday today is because I knew I had the show today. I don't know what's going on anymore.
It's good that you remember that at least.
Yeah, thank God, right? I mean, you would have had to fill it in for me. If I could have been stuck in traffic still. I barely made it in here live. Clay saw me
a close call
at like 7:59. I'm like, all right, I'm here. Calm, cool, collected. Who wasn't necessarily calm, cool, collected this week, Clay, and not that they really ever are, including myself, including, pretty much everybody in the Twitter world. Bills Mafia reacted to the PFF Power Rankings of NFL quarterbacks, which kind of stole the news cycle, you could say, this week for the NFL, like I was alluding to earlier. Really slow time of year right now. The draft's over, obviously. Free agency's over, and we can only talk about Aaron Rodgers so much before he actually says something. So PFF made us shift our focus to who they think might be the best quarterbacks in the league, and we'll pull that up right now here, Clay. And there's Patty Mahomes. Okay. There's Tom Brady. Okay. Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson. I'm not seeing Josh Allen. Deshaun Watson. There he is, Josh Allen at number 6. Clay, I'm going to let you have at this in a second. I want to give my piece quick. Josh Allen at number 6 stirred up some heat on Twitter because it seemed as though plenty of Bills fans thought that was not high enough. Let's take several things into consideration here. One, PFF and who they are in general. Their method of doing things is very different than others. What I do like about PFF is whatever they wind up doing in regard to power ranking, there's some sort of astronomical Elon Musk style math behind it. So there's really no disputing it in regard to the way they do things. They're not pulling it out of thin air. It's not Stephen A. live on, First Take, just throwing out teams. There's legitimate reasoning to this. You just have to decide whether the reasoning is worth wrapping in or getting all into. Some people get way too hung up on PFF rankings. Let's be real here. Just because there's a bunch of math involved, it's still rankings. But my main thing here, and of course I knew that Bills fans were going to be upset. If Josh Allen isn't one, there's going to be plenty of people who are upset. But I look at it and I scroll through the list here and I notice something. There's Josh Allen at 6. And if you're looking at the top 5, he's the 3rd best quarterback, according to the list, in the AFC, marginally different than Deshaun Watson, who right now we do not know the status of. So you can easily flip Josh Allen into the top 5. Deshaun Watson, right now, there's nobody in the league who's taken Deshaun Watson over Josh Allen in any organization right now, simply due to the parameters surrounding him off the field. Shout out my man Rico, got flamed a long time back for saying you take Deshaun Watson over Josh Allen. I'm sure that he's had a change of heart since then. I'm not dogging him because he was spot on. He said, I'd take Deshaun Watson over Josh Allen, but what was he really saying? The gap between them is it's so marginal that, if you go one or the other, really what's the difference? If Deshaun Watson came in, the Bills would still be a championship contender. But you scroll down here, and there's Josh Allen in the AFC East. Okay, I'm looking for AFC quarterbacks. I'm really going fast here. I'm pressing the gas. And the first one to pop up is, Cam Newton at 27. And then, there's Tua at 29, Zach Wilson at 30. Folks, we can get upset all we want that Josh Allen is 6. But at the end of the day, let's come to terms with the fact that we have, in PFF's eyes, a fringe top 5 quarterback while the rest of the division is rounding out the bottom of the top 32. It's not even close. It's not even close. Josh Allen is here. My arm is touching the ceiling. And the rest of the AFC East, I'm not that flexible, but it's touching the floor. We can get all upset that Josh Allen isn't 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, but it does not matter. And these are conversations we have all the time, but let's really look into the top 5. Patrick Mahomes, MVP, Super Bowl champion. Tom Brady, the greatest to ever do it. Aaron Rodgers, the previous MVP, a Super Bowl champion. Russell Wilson, a Super Bowl champion. And here's where you can start the debate. But there's no way that anybody in any league circle would ever dispute that those 4 quarterbacks are not the best in the league, have been the best in the league, and are all future Hall of Famers who will go down as some of the best to ever do it, including a couple who may be regarded as the best to ever do it. So, Clay, when I see Josh Allen at 6, I think it's an awesome thing. It tells me after 3 years, a guy who many people thought would bust out of the league is 6 in the eyes of the mathematical world of PFF, behind guys who we will always look at as some of the greatest to ever play the game of football.
Yeah. And honestly, it's kind of funny just because there are just so many good quarterbacks in the league right now. It's kind of, we're halfway between two generations of quarterbacks, where some of the older guys are still around, like Rodgers and Brady. But then there's the new young guys too, who are playing really good football, and they're going to end up taking over in 15 years, those are going to be the Aaron Rodgers and the Tom Brady's. So it is tough, especially in that top, really the top 10. You could probably ask 10 different people to make lists for you, and they would all come out different just because all of those guys are so good.
Here, there's plenty of people who wouldn't have Dak Prescott sniffing their top 10.
Yeah. And
So-
you know, Dak's a good quarterback. But I mean, I don't really have that many issues with the list. I do think Aaron Rodgers should be number one. I think he's the best quarterback in the league. He plays the best football. You know, and I know they got their formula and everything, so I don't know. Maybe they don't take into account some of the intangibles that he has, but I just think he's the best quarterback. He just plays really good football. You know, last season was a crazy season. And when you think about it, Josh Allen had an MVP caliber season with the stats that he had, but Aaron Rodgers did better than that. Right. So, you know, Aaron Rodgers was so far ahead. I don't know how you couldn't put him number one. And then, you know, from there, bump it down. I don't think Brady should be number two anymore. He's still he can still play. He can still throw the ball. He's not what he used to be anymore. I would still put him top five, maybe fringe top five though. And I don't know. Wilson is tough for me just because he doesn't have a lot of good talent around him. You know, he's got a bad offensive line and it's hard to figure it out.
The very stale offense in general that's run within the organization.
Right. And so, I mean, you know, that's a tough situation. It's tough to judge something like that with a guy that doesn't have those pieces around him. And maybe that's why he got the edge kind of over Josh Allen, because Allen has a lot of good pieces around him. So I think, you know, people will put him further down on the list just because of the talent that's around him sometimes.
Jeff King rolling in, ride and die with Allen. He's Buffalo. He's what embodies the Bills, the city, and Bills fans 100%. Jeff King, and that's the intangibles that PFF's mathematics do not factor in, and that, of course, is why we love Josh Allen so much. Here's the one thing you need to really look at when it comes to looking at Josh Allen at number one. If we Bills fans want to put Josh Allen at the top of the pedestal at number one, guess what he's number one in the category of? The draft class of 2018. And that, folks, is what matters most, because in that draft class, it was inevitable. It was a necessity that the Bills needed a quarterback. They went quarterback. And after several were chosen, the Bills wound up with the best quarterback. You look at Josh Allen at 6. And then, of course, in the same draft class, a few spots down, you have Lamar Jackson at 8. You have Baker Mayfield at 10, the number one overall pick. And then way down the list, of course, unfortunately for him, Sam Darnold, who is just out of all of them, never been given a fair roll of the dice. But
where's Josh Rosen?
Josh Rosen, he was at number one, but they added it before I pulled it up, Clay, from what I can tell. How amazing, though, Clay, that draft class going in to the 2021 season has 3 top 10 quarterbacks, and they're only going into their 4th year.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And I don't know, you might have expected that, yeah, you could have 3 top 10 quarterbacks in that draft. I don't think anyone would have picked those 3 guys, though. There were a lot of people who weren't a fan of Lamar and didn't think that he could play the quarterback position very well. Then you had, you know, we're plenty of Josh Allen doubters. Most of Bills Mafia falls into that category. So, you know, it's pretty incredible. It just shows that you really don't know a lot of the times. And that's another reason why, you know, I don't really like post-draft grades. Like you do the draft and you grade it right after. It's like, how do you even know? That guy hasn't even touched the football field in the NFL yet, and you're going to say that that's a good pick or a bad pick. It doesn't make sense. But, you know, it's kind of a crapshoot sometimes. And it does matter how the team is built around them. Sam Darnold never got a chance because Adam Gase was his coach. So among other things. But, you know, it's all very, very circumstantial, but yeah, to know that we probably got the best one out of the bunch is a great feeling.
Rich, I hope you stood your ground there. What I appreciate about Browns fans is they're very similar to us in regard to passion. So I can respect that, but that's delusion, and you know it, and I know it. No, but let me wrap this with a bow in saying that I love the passion of Bills Mafia. I'm clearly a part of it, and that's what I love about it, and I'm as passionate as anybody, believe me. What I'm trying to portray here is let's not get lost in these lists, especially when on said list, he is a fringe top 5 quarterback, Josh Allen is. Let's pay attention to the things that were in control of the Bills organizations. Case in point, picking in the 2018 draft. And according to PFF, of course, Josh Allen is the best. Good luck finding me a list that has any of those guys above Josh Allen right now. The biggest thing to me when you look at this list, though, is the top 10. It's a healthy mix right almost down the middle in regard to half and half of old legacy and the new wave of the NFL. And it's a really great feeling to know that the Bills have that guy that when you tune into ESPN, when you tune into talk radio, the things you hear are they're looking to get a Josh Allen in the draft. They're looking for a guy who can make plays like a Josh Allen, a Patrick Mahomes, where it used to be like a Patrick Mahomes, like an Aaron Rodgers. Josh Allen is now in that comparison list. So it's just something we're not used to. And I think that's why we get very defensive, because now we have switched the dial up so high that we are ready to fight anybody who says he's not the best of the best. I'm here over the moon satisfied that in my lifetime, we never had a quarterback that would touch the top 15 of this list. And now we have the pleasure of arguing over whether or not he's potentially the best guy in the league.
Yeah. And I, there's so much that goes into that too. Everyone's saying that they want a Josh Allen. They this guy could be a Josh Allen. I love that statement because Josh Allen is one of one. If you draft a raw quarterback prospect who's big and athletic and can throw the ball, but he's a little bit raw still, it doesn't mean he's going to develop. It has to do so much with the person, which I think is, Josh Allen is the type of guy that Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott like to go after. So that's definitely one of my favorite things. But yeah, the passion is definitely there. Oh, yeah. We're always going to think you're exactly right. We've never seen good quarterback play before. I think the Bills Mafia is just so shocked about how well their quarterback is playing that we're like, well, he's got to be the best. He's playing way better than the dog shit players that we've seen for the past.
It's the best for us.
Years.
Yes.
So,
it's so different that how could it not be the best? Because it's the best thing we've ever seen. Right. So that's a really good way of putting it. I have the footage. I have to find and play it one of these times. But in college is where I was when the 2018 draft went down. And there was a healthy mix of Jets fans at Oswego, where I went to school, a healthy mix of, Giants fans, whatever else. But a really good friend of mine was a Jets fan who was over at the draft. We had a big, get together. And I remember Sam Darnold goes to the Jets and he looks at me. I mean, we've been drinking the whole time. And he looks at me blasted and he goes, "We are going to own you for, I forget for the however many years he said, for X amount of years." And at the time, I'm not going to lie, I might have, in the video, you see me kind of sink into the chair like, damn. Especially when we didn't go Josh Rosen. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like that wasn't in the camp I was in. Sorry, it was. And I think there was plenty of people. See, I'm one who will admit it because I have no shame in admitting it, because I don't think there was anybody else other than Mel Kiper, who I give a lot of credit to for standing his ground on him. Also, Chris Sims, two guys who are oftentimes really ridiculed for their takes on quarterbacks. But unfortunately, that was me. I was the guy that you were referring to, Clay, a part of Bills Mafia, who was just not really aware of what was coming in from Josh Allen other than pure raw talent that really needed to be built. And when you hear that as a Bills fan, you think, we've been building since I was born. So I'm not really in any position right now to continue to build, but man, was that house built quick, and it's a beauty. Yeah, that was insane. I mean, almost every Bills fan was so upset when they heard Allen was the last name that came after Josh. So I'm in the same boat. I had a Jets fan friend as well, and I'm pretty sure he probably said something similar to me, or made a little joke about the quarterbacks that we took. But look at us now. Look at us now. And you look at the AFC East, which I said this after the draft. My biggest takeaway from the draft was the AFC East just became the most interesting quarterback class of players in the entire league in respect to division. I mean, when you look at the young talent that is going to wind up representing that division, it's remarkable. I mean, right now, obviously, of course, you got Josh Allen spearheading it, but Mac Jones set to take over in New England at some point. Obviously, Zach Wilson will take over from the get-go for the Jets. and then you have Tua in place, and we don't know what's going to happen there. There's clearly a lack of trust in regard to Tua. You oftentimes hear Deshaun Watson's name thrown out if and when he gets back for the season. You hear about the Dolphins because of the amount of draft capital that they have to give up for a guy like Deshaun Watson. But nonetheless, whether or not they keep Tua or not, looking at the AFC East in general in respect to quarterback, it's incredibly interesting, and it's also incredibly satisfying knowing that in that realm of young quarterbacks, Josh Allen is far and away superior, and it's the Bills at the mountaintop with the rest of the division trying to run up it. And of course, we Bills fans have been at the bottom of the hill for so long with mudslides falling down, never being able to get quite up there. It's firmly planted at the top of the hill, Clay. And I mean, we're going to need to see an incredible display of talent from one of these guys for it to come close anytime soon.
Oh yeah, I was going to say the same thing, and it's Josh Allen at the top, and everyone else has got to climb to get there, because I mean even the progression that he made is not normal. He made the progressions that he made from season to season. His rookie season looked okay. We saw those flashes, and I think we could see some of those from some of the young guys. I didn't really see a lot from Tua last season. I'm not a big Tua fan. I just don't think he's that good, and I don't think he'll pan out. But I think we could still see flashes. I think we'll see some from Wilson. Maybe if Mac Jones ever gets his wide receivers as open as they were at Alabama, he could probably hit a couple big plays. But I think we'll see flashes from those guys. But even if we do, the development is usually not that quick. And I'm not sure, if they might be a little more polished than Allen was going into the NFL. But the learning curve from there is going to be at a completely different pace for probably the other three of those quarterbacks.
And you want to know what? When we get down to talking about these lists, it's another thing I think of. We take for granted, I think, how quick that transition was made. Even though it was 3 years, 3 years in the NFL world is nothing. I mean, we're talking 3 years of leaps between each year that were so monumental, with a ceiling that we don't know if it's even been brushed yet. We really don't. And
he really only got one off season, because if you think about it, when he was drafted, he didn't really get a full off season experience. He came into rookie minicamp, and that was his first experience with the team. And then he had one full off season the second year, and then COVID hit, and he had virtually no off season. Again, and no preseason to work with the guys. He had just make do with what he had. So to add that on top of it, it makes it even more crazy.
And we talk about it sometimes. I don't know if we talk about it enough, because everybody wants to dog Allen for his rookie year. I mean, we can't stress enough who he was throwing the ball to, and look who he's throwing to now. And I always thought that as we watched Allen take the step from rookie year to the second year, and then the second year to the third year, the one thing that consistently changed with that was the talent of the wide receiver core. It got better each and every year. And look what happened. He got monumentally better each and every year. Those things matter. It's a big reason why Sam Darnold never stood a chance. It's a big reason why Justin Herbert comes into the league and looks phenomenal. The Chargers have a terrific offense surrounding him, and they go out and up the line now. You really need a solid foundation surrounding you to succeed your rookie season. Now, when I hear the Tua stands, I don't understand them, because you talked about it. You said you didn't see anything special from Tua, and that's what I say. Dog Josh Allen all you want his rookie season. He leaped over a linebacker in an upset in which was one of the biggest upsets in regard to point differential in the history of the NFL. Granted, they had an awful season, but they didn't have a very good team, let alone anybody surrounding Allen to give him any chance for the success that he's currently having. But there was special in Josh Allen, and we knew that coming in. We just didn't know if it was going to come to fruition quickly. It did, of course, but there were shades of that rookie season. You look at Tua, there's nothing special about being taken out of a game multiple times throughout the season, especially the one I go back to all the time, the Raiders game. Game's on the line. Playoffs are on the line. Brian Flores says, we don't trust you. Put the beard in. Let him win it, and he makes one of the greatest plays of the season. But Tua wasn't going to make that play, Clay.
Yeah. And I, and that's the thing too. I don't like the way the Tua situation was handled at all. If I was a Dolphins fan, I'd be really pissed off about it, honestly. Brian Flores, I think, made a terrible decision putting him in halfway through the season. He just didn't need to do that. I mean, look at how Patrick Mahomes did. I mean, he was, no one really thought Patrick Mahomes was going to be the best quarterback in that draft class. And Andy Reid took him, put him on the bench. And, he learned from Alex Smith, a game managing, middle of the line quarterback. And I was like, oh, Tua's playing behind a middle of the pack quarterback who at times can be a game manager. Sometimes, he's a little bit too much of a gunslinger, but I was like, oh, he's going to play a season behind him and he'll play next year. And I just don't understand why they made that decision, especially since throughout the season, they just kept on saying, yeah, Fitz, you got to go clean this game up. Right. Didn't make any sense to me. Was just handled that situation terribly. So that's another reason that hurts the development. If you put him in too soon and you shake his confidence, that it affects people.
What really didn't make sense to me was, the drought in which Miami has been in for some time now and how bad they were in previous seasons compared to last season, which they did have a decent year in their standards. You add the 7th team to the playoffs and they were right in the mix for all the way up until the end. And that's why none of it made sense. And, the only thing you need to look at, Clay, I was at the game. It was the only game I got to go to, of course, because of the circumstances surrounding the season last year. But I went out for the Miami game. And the Dolphins played them wire to wire. I was very nervous in that game. If it wasn't for a deep touchdown late out of Allen to widen the score, that game was incredibly close throughout. And compare that, and that was with Fitz starting. And I remember in that game, Naseki, right? The tight end.
Yeah. Wait,
for Miami.
From Gesicki.
Oh, Gesicki. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I said Naseki. Gesicki, yes, shredded us.
He's really good.
He is. And Fitz was up and down the field all day. And you look at the game in which Tua started, the Bills had nothing to play for. The Dolphins had everything to play for. It just wound up being one of the biggest routes of the entire season.
Yeah, and I'll say too, which keeps going with that.
Checking in on the pulse of Clay. Clay, are you alive? Clay. Somebody shoot in the comments if I'm still on or if that's Clay or what the deal is, because I can't tell if it's me who's out or Clay. I think somebody let me know in the comments if it's me or him so I know what to do, because Clay right now, he's starring in the movie Frozen. Clay right now is starring in the movie Frozen. There he is. Clay, I was just saying,
I completely lost internet.
You just won an Oscar for starring in the movie Frozen.
Yeah. What was it, a good pose at least?
Oh, it was gorgeous. I hope somebody got a screen grab. If you did, we're trying to get this rolling on Twitter. Buffalo Fanatics live hashtag. If you got a screen grab of Clay's beautiful frozen face, throw it up on Twitter. We'll get it. We'll get that everywhere. Everybody can have that in their back of their wallet pocket to take with them wherever.
Yeah, I can't wait to see that. Yeah, I completely lost all internet connection. So I don't know what happened there at all. It still says I don't.
Well, if that's the case, you got back quick. That happened to me once, and it was not that easy.
I'm assuming I must have automatically connected to Wi-Fi here, which is what happened because my Ethernet connection just gave out. So hopefully the internet connection is still good throughout the show.
You're looking good. You're looking good on my end. So as you were saying.
Yes, where was I was talking about Tua and how they put him in too early. The playbook when they put Tua in was just a lot smaller and it was a lot different. Yeah. And so that it also your team has to adjust to that when, especially in the middle of a game, when it's like, hey, we're pulling Tua out, we're putting Fitz back in. It's like, okay, well, hold on. We have to think about this differently. First of all, he's thrown out a different hand. So any bootleg action or rollout action is probably going to go the opposite way. And then, it's a different quarterback himself, and he doesn't have the same kind of knowledge that Fitzpatrick has of the offense, since, Fitzpatrick, it's Chan Gailey's offense, which Fitzpatrick's fairly familiar with. So, I just thought it didn't make any sense to me. And that was another reason why maybe we didn't see those flashes as much, because he wasn't given a chance because that playbook was so limited. But yeah, I just didn't really see much out of him, and it'll kind of be interesting to see where it goes from.
Just another layer to how interesting the AFC East is going to be this season. Does Tua continue to get benched? What does Miami do? Does he progress? Does he wind up shocking us all and being the guy so many elements to the AFC East, but at the end of the day, Clay, I will go to bed tonight, tomorrow, and for the rest of time, knowing Josh Allen, well, not the rest of time, but I have, as of right now, I'm pretty confident in saying that Josh Allen is at the top of the totem pole. D. Handsome, one night Z-Bot's computer blew up. Yeah, no, Dom, I'm glad you remember that because I sure as hell do. That was scary. I mean, the whole thing, it started like shaking. The screen was flashing. I thought I was going to have to call the bomb squad. I didn't know what was going on. But I got it back up, not as quick as you did, Clay. So we're going to touch on the schedule here, of course. How could we not? I wasn't able to do it with you guys last week, but I want to dive into that here with Clay. Before we do, though, we would be remiss. I hate saying that, but we would be remiss, Clay, if we did not touch on one of the other bigger news topics of this week. Just wanted to get your quick thoughts on this. Tim Tebow off to the Jacksonville Jaguars. No, not to compete with Trevor Lawrence for the starting quarterback job, but to compete for the tight end job, in which he is currently listed as the fourth string tight end. This is an incredibly polarizing, you could say, signing by Urban Meyer, his former Florida coach. In a really slow news cycle, Clay, this was a big bombshell. I don't think many people saw this coming until it came. Your thoughts before I give mine on the whole Tim Tebow experiment in Jacksonville.
Yeah, so first of all, Tebow, everyone loves Tebow. Everyone loves talking about Tebow. Even if they hate Tebow, they love talking about Tebow. Right. And that's the way it's been since before he was drafted. I mean, the guy was one of the best college football quarterbacks of all time. So it's understandable that he gets a lot of attention, even though he hasn't really had much success at the next level. I'll say this about Tim Tebow is he is living proof that attitude matters, because this guy was one of the best college football players of all time, gets drafted first round. It doesn't really pan out for him. I don't think he's really made to be an NFL quarterback. His motion is way too slow. Honestly, and then he tried to change it. It's really hard to change your motion that late in your life, is when you've thrown that many footballs that same way. So it's really tough for him to be able to do something like that. But then he made it work. He still found places to play, even when he wasn't, a starting quarterback. He was playing H-back and stuff like that. And then he goes and plays baseball. The Denver defense took them to 11-4, but
but I will say one of the greatest playoff
that was a really good game.
History.
That was a really awesome game. Yeah, and you can see the full motion and everything.
Yeah, I know. It's like a worse Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it, but like he when he pulls away, his arm goes all the way down and that elbow comes up. It's so bad. But yeah, it's the fact that he went and played baseball. He wasn't a baseball player, and he went and played baseball, and he tried it, and he, didn't really succeed there either. But now he's back in the NFL, and it's literally all just because of his attitude. And that's pretty much what Urban Meyer said was, he's got the best attitude, and he's the hardest worker. And I guess if you're a good dude, that's just super likable and works really hard, apparently you can get away with anything, and you can stay relevant for a very long time just because of that. And he's an athletic person. It's just I don't think anyone, including himself, has figured out how to take that athleticism and apply it to professional sports yet.
Very, very well said. And to me, it kind of sounded like an argument towards what is happening in Jacksonville, in the positive direction. Is that fair to say? You somewhat support it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's never a bad idea to have a guy like that in your locker room. I mean, having Tim Tebow around just for anyone on your team to talk to, that's probably a pretty good thing, because he's just a great dude. I mean, even I don't know if any of you guys listen to Pat McAfee, but he in the past was like, before he had met Tebow, he was like, I would always talk crap about Tebow and all this, and then I met him, and it's just impossible to hate him, because he's just such a nice guy, and he just without even trying will just motivate you and make you feel good about yourself. It's just the kind of guy that he is, and it's never a bad idea to have someone like that in your locker room, even if he's not contributing on the field.
Your quote of Pat McAfee took the words right out of my mouth. The first thing I was going to open up here in my take on the whole thing is, it is impossible to hate that guy. I do not understand how you can hate him. And I think the reason maybe Pat McAfee did beforehand is he's an easy target to pick on because he's unlike anybody else. He was super religious, right? He was very rah-rah guy. He's not your classic football player by any stretch of the imagination. That's why this whole situation is polarizing, because it's Tim Tebow. If it was anybody else, nobody would care. But Tim Tebow, like you said, is someone that everybody wants to talk about. And the reason is because of who he is. He is a different guy. He's not like anybody else, really. I mean, let's put it frankly. I mean, remember back in the days when we were Tim Tebowing, and that was the origin of memes back in the Tim Tebow NFL days.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Was the John Wall before or after the Tim Tebow? Was that like around the same time?
To me, that's all like one gigantic blurb of the same exact time. Yeah, the John. Yeah, exactly. It was all in that one, like, the period of high school where when you look back on it now, it's all just one long memory. You know?
Oh yeah. It's pretty fuzzy for me.
Of course. Oh yeah, big time.
I played football. I took a lot of hits to the head. So
yeah, and I played lacrosse where it was less hitting, but it's not. You got a helmet on nonetheless for a reason. You're taking some shots.
Oh yeah.
So Tim Tebow, Clay, I think the way you spoke on it, I really liked it because it's a very similar take to what I have. Here's what I don't like about this whole situation. Everybody's making it out to be something that it is not. It is not a political thing. It is not a cancer to the locker room or somebody's job in Jacksonville. The reason Tim Tebow has a job in the NFL today is because Urban Meyer is the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. If Urban Meyer was the head coach of the Detroit Lions, Tim Tebow would be a Detroit Lion. If he was the head coach of the Houston Texans, Tim Tebow would be a Houston Texan. Tim Tebow would not be signed by any other team that is not coached by Urban Meyer. So this is not some huge, why are we giving Tim Tebow a chance? He doesn't deserve it. Urban Meyer coached this guy to be what Clay said and what is well known as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, college quarterback of all time, and by far one of the most memorable, one of the most different, and in my lifetime, one of the most fun to watch. That Florida team, the guys that were on that team, it's an incredible thing to look back upon. And I am a huge Tim Tebow fan. I always have been, and I thought it was a raw shake that he got getting kicked out of the NFL so quick. He might have been a little bit before his time. His style of play, although his throwing mechanics are god-awful, like you kind of alluded to, in today's NFL, with his athleticism, you wonder if there was a team out there who might try to make that work longer than other teams did. I don't know how long that would have lasted, but maybe he would have gotten a little bit longer in the league. But the reason that Tim Tebow is brought into Jacksonville, there's several. One, what has Jacksonville done all offseason? They've become relevant. Let me know the last time Jacksonville was relevant, even when they were in the AFC Championship. Blake Bortles was their quarterback, and nobody cared about the Jacksonville Jaguars. But guess what? You turn on the TV today and tomorrow and the next day, the Jacksonville Jaguars will wind up on a sports show of some sort in some segment, whether they're talking about Trevor Lawrence, Urban Meyer, Travis Etienne, and now, of course, Tim Tebow. They have become relevant because they are making moves that are business-oriented. Let's not forget, everybody, the NFL is a business, and Jacksonville has done a hell of a good job this offseason of marketing themselves. Their marketing campaign this offseason has been terrific. They get a quarterback who is regarded as maybe the highest-ranked quarterback coming out of college ever. The way we are already categorizing Trevor Lawrence as a great NFL quarterback. He's never played a snap. Nobody is assuming that he is going to be a bust. No one is even thinking that that's a possibility. They take him in. They take his teammate Travis Etienne. Urban Meyer's trying to convert him into a wide receiver out of nowhere. Urban Meyer becomes the head coach, which in itself is huge. He comes out of retirement. Urban Meyer, of course, one of the greatest college coaches of all time. He brings in Tim Tebow, not only from that aspect. Tim Tebow is going to sell jerseys if he can take over 15 from Gardner Minshew. If he walks out on the field, Tim Tebow is a Florida native who played at the University of Florida. He will get more cheers out of that stadium than anybody else on that entire team if he steps on the field for a snap. So that's one of the reasons. Another reason is what Clay talked about. Urban Meyer is trying to build a culture in Jacksonville. He might be bringing Tim Tebow on to sit the pine the whole year and get guys bought into Urban Meyer, because who was more bought into Urban Meyer than Tim Tebow, the guy who put his blood, sweat, and tears into that Florida program under Urban Meyer all those years, won a Heisman, won a national championship. Just an incredible story the Florida Gators used to be under Urban Meyer with Tim Tebow. You bring Tim Tebow in for what you were talking about, Clay, and what I'm getting at. He is a locker room enhancer. This is going to be a very young team. He's a guy who's going to get people in the door, bought in on Urban Meyer. And I don't think Urban Meyer's bringing him in to become the next Travis Kelce. It's not happening. You know it. I know it. Urban knows it. And Tim knows it. He's not going in there expecting to be Tony Gonzalez. But he's going in there, and I'm sure this conversation was had with Urban Meyer. He's going in there to build something in Jacksonville. And what has Jacksonville been doing all offseason? They are building. They are trying to become a contender in the AFC. They are a young, talented team now. And if not for anything, they are a conversation piece with several different layers. It's almost, you could have a show for an hour breaking down the Jacksonville Jaguars heading in to the 2021 season. It would take you 20 minutes to summarize their last 20 years. So that's where the Jacksonville Jaguars are at right now. And it's the reason I like the Tim Tebow move. Not only because I really do like Tim Tebow, the person, but I understand what's happening in Jacksonville. I think people are looking at it like, why is Tim Tebow getting another chance in the NFL? No, it's not that, because he would never be brought in by any other team not coached by Urban Meyer. He's getting a chance because Urban Meyer, he's kind of had I don't know what you want to call it, controversial type offseason. I don't know if everybody thought he was going to go Travis Etienne. He brings in that strength and conditioning coach from Iowa who had a really rocky past that nobody wanted in the NFL. He's also a first-year coach in the NFL, ever. He's never done it. And we all know that can go one of two ways. Nick Saban, one of the greatest coaches in the history of the sport, could not figure it out at the NFL level. It is not an easy task. I think, why not bring in my greatest leader I've ever had under my wing to help me build this? So you look at it and say, no, this isn't a move so Tim Tebow can play tight end. It's a move to help Jacksonville in a variety of different ways.
Mm-hmm. Do you think this is Tim Tebow's introduction to coaching?
It was the first thought I had, Clay. I wonder what the move itself at the tight end position. I think that's what's kind of got people talking about why tight end and who does he think he is coming in and playing an entirely different position. Tim Tebow's not going to, he's not playing the position. I mean, yeah, he'll come out. You got to remember, he's on the 90 team roster. It's not like somebody's going to lose a job over Tim Tebow, which people keep saying, oh, what if somebody in the NFL who's worked their ass off at the tight end position loses their job to Tim Tebow? If you lose your job to Tim Tebow at the tight end position, you might want to reevaluate yourself, not Tim Tebow. I don't think that's his fault. It's probably your own fault. So it's not a move to bring Tim Tebow in to accelerate at the tight end position. But back to your question, Clay, yes, I think this could be an introduction, and I think Tim Tebow would be a hell of a coach. I mean, now he's a motivational speaker. You got to pay $6 figures to get him in to talk to you. Why not get him on an NFL salary and use that talent to build up a team, especially one where your former head coach, who you have the utmost respect for, is now leading the charge?
Yeah, Tim Tebow as a coach, I'd love to see that. It'd be good for football because people love talking about Tim Tebow so much. But yeah, he's not going to do that much on the field, I don't think. Anytime he's on the field, all 21 other guys are going to know where he is, regardless of who's on what side of the ball. Everyone's going to know where Tim Tebow is on the field. The whole stadium is, because he's Tim Tebow. So if anything, I think they might use him as a distraction, just because it's like, well, Tim Tebow's on the field. What are they going to do? But yeah, I don't really think that he's going to be able to do that much on the field. He's old at this point, or getting up there at least. Yeah. And he's learning a new position. Again, he just tried to go learn a whole new sport, and now he's coming back to this one and learn a new position there. I don't really think he's going to contribute that much, but I don't really mind it. I think the whole Tebow thing is funny just because some people just like talking about him to stir stuff up, and other people get stirred up.
I think if the headline was Urban Meyer brings in Tim Tebow as this role, like whatever coaching role, however minor it would be, I think people would be praising it. The reason everybody's ripping it is because tight end, that's what the storyline is. But everybody, you got to ignore that. That's not what it is. Yeah. I think it's a fun experiment. It's cool. And at the end of the day, you just have to remember it's because Urban Meyer is the coach. And like we said, he's one of the greatest to ever do it at the collegiate level. It's not like he doesn't know what he's doing. There's got to be some method behind the madness. It'll be interesting to see how it pans out throughout training camp. I mean, God, there's a variety of different things that could pan out. Tim Tebow comes out. Oh my God, is Tim Tebow fighting for the starting job? Or, oh my God, Urban Meyer is going to have to cut Tim Tebow. How awkward is that going to be? There's a variety of different storylines that could wind up happening. But had to touch on that real quick, of course, Clay, because that was a big story. But I'm here to say that I've always rooted for Tim Tebow. I'm a fan of his. And, I hope that something cool comes out of it, but not for nothing, made himself relevant. And I'll say this to end it all. If you don't think Tim Tebow is well loved or relevant, anybody in the Rochester, Buffalo area, he came and played up in Syracuse. They were selling out stadiums at the AA level for baseball to see Tim Tebow swing a bat. So that's kind of the guy Tim Tebow is. And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out at the tight end position, Clay. So fun stuff for a couple weeks that have been kind of boring. You could say Tim Tebow stole the spotlight a little bit.
Yeah.
You got something? Are we
no, I was just gonna say there's not much of a spotlight right now.
Yeah.
So pretty easy to steal.
All right, the schedule. Let's get into it, baby. That's the big topic for us Bills fans as we get ready for the 2021 season. And my God, I know we were talking a little bit earlier about how the month of May is flying. I mean, come on. You hit June, things start rolling. You got your summer plans going. Training camp starts. Holy crap, the season is here. And we finally have the schedule out. And here it is. Everybody, of course, has seen it by now. That is not the schedule. That is the opponents. Pardon me real quick as I remove that and get the actual schedule up. Clay, while I do that, initial thoughts on when the schedule broke and was there anything you took away from it that stood out or you didn't like, you did like? What did you think of it right when you first saw it?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing everyone looks at, or it seems like the first thing everyone looked at this year was the primetime games. And a lot of people were, some people were complaining. Some people thought they should have had more. I'm fine with it. Four primetime games is fine. I don't really care. I'm going to watch the Bills when they play. If it's primetime, if it's not primetime, that's cool. There's only one home primetime game. I'm actually really happy with that. So I'm a season ticket holder, so I go to all of them. And I don't really like going to night games as much as, especially usually just because I have to take off work the next day. Right. And that's just inconvenient. It's fun to experience. One night game for me is perfect. I can go to one night game, deal with the people being way too drunk, way more drunk than they would be for a day game anyway. Deal with those people for one day, and then I can just go to my regular 1:00 games the rest of the season. So I honestly was pretty happy with it.
One thing that stood out to me right off the bat as we'll dive into week one, and that's where I want to start. Usually the year starts against the Jets or an in-division opponent. This is a big test for both teams right out of the gate. We're talking two playoff teams, a team in which the Bills have now beaten in consecutive seasons in prime time. This one is at 1:00 and it is at home. So the Bills are welcoming back in us members of Bills Mafia right out of the gates for week one. And we're typically used to having a W automatically written in because it's the Jets or it's the Dolphins. I mean, let's be honest. And when you look at Pittsburgh, you don't have that same feeling. And of course, last year they really fizzled out towards the end of the year, no doubt about it. And the fact that Ben's coming back is sign for concern, I would say, if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I don't see them really elevating beyond much of what they were last year, especially with the start that they had. But right out of the gates, Clay, week one, your takeaway on facing the Steelers at home.
Yeah, I mean, it's not Sunday Night Football, so I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, honestly.
Right.
I think that's probably a good game. It's decent competition, but they're not too tough. Just because I think the Steelers got slightly worse this offseason with, I guess mostly just because their offensive line is looking pretty weak at the moment, and it didn't get any better. It got worse. So, I think just because of that, it'll be good for our rookies. We have 2 rookie edge rushers and AJ Epinesa,
Right.
who's, his second-year guy who didn't have a preseason his rookie year. So I'm excited to see that. I think that's going to be a really good tune-up game, hopefully, for those young guys on the defensive line, and maybe they can get in there and chop it up a little bit. I mean, Greg Rousseau makes bad defensive linemen pay when they play badly. So hopefully he can do a little bit of that. And maybe we can see his first sack week 1 if he's on the field at all. That would be pretty good.
An interesting thing I take away from the Steelers games is that the Bills, oh my God, I just gave myself a Charlie horse. If you saw me spaz out right there, wow, that was like self-inflicted trauma live on the air. The thing I always take away from the previous couple Steelers games is that the offense did not look very good. And if it was not for one of 2 Teron Johnson pick sixes last season against the Steelers to take the lead before the half, the Bills were not playing well in that game. Neither was the Steelers offense, obviously, but the Bills offense compared to the Steelers offense is far better. Obviously, the Steelers have a stout defense, and that's a tough task to go against in week 1. But I'm interested to see if the offense really takes that next step. It'd be hard to compare to last season, but a next step to me would be coming out and accelerating against a defense like the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah,
and I think Pittsburgh's defense got worse too. Honestly, I think they lost. They lost Bud Dupree. I think they lost a corner or 2. So they didn't get much. They didn't get any better on that side of the ball either. I do still think that they're going to have a very good defense because they have a lot of good key pieces in that defense there. So I do think that they're still going to have a good defense. But also that was kind of the Steelers game was kind of a weird one because that was kind of the first game where the offense played bad in the first half and had a really good third quarter. And that hadn't really it pretty much always been the opposite before that. It's always we are up by 24 points at halftime, and then we just have to hold that lead until 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter when we can score points again. So it was kind of good to see them break out of that and score in the third quarter. And Stephon Diggs did end up torching that entire secondary for most of the second half there. So I think they'll probably be okay. I don't see the Steelers as that much of a threat, to be honest. But it's week 1. The game plans, and no one's going to have scouting for any of these teams in that season. They'll have last year's film, but it's not the same. So I think it'll be interesting to open up against a team that is pretty good and has a chance to win it.
And that'll be the debut of the first round pick, rather, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Najee Harris. So that'll be interesting to see how they try to utilize him. A run game for the Steelers last year, which was beyond atrocious. They could not even facilitate it. You think the Bills' run game is mediocre? The Steelers was far, far worse.
It was very bad.
On the road the following week, and that's when we get into the division. So usually it's week 1. We'll take it at week 2. It's on the road at Miami. Then a date with Fitz Magic back at home with yet another team. I mean, you just got to love it. I look at Washington as no joke. Their defense is stout. The NFC East is terrible. I understand that, but they did win their division last season. I think the offense automatically gets better with Fitz, who had a pretty decent year for the Miami Dolphins last season. But that Washington defense is no joke. I mean, really, Clay, when you look at it right out of the gate, first 3 weeks, we're talking 3 really good defenses.
Yeah, that's probably the scariest part, honestly, just because those defenses are all very good. I don't think we're going to see a defense really as good as any of those until we face Miami again, unless Tennessee's playing well. I don't think I feel like they probably stayed around the same. They might have pretty good defense, but yeah, there's a lot of good defenses in those first 3. I think Washington, honestly, it's between Washington or Pittsburgh. One of those 2 teams has the best defense in the league, probably, or will have one of the best defenses in the league. So, yeah, that Washington team is nothing to joke around with, especially with Fitz, who, I think honestly, Fitz is probably playing the best football of his career right now.
Yeah, you can say
or he was last season. When he was on the field, I think he was playing his best football. He still makes those mistakes because he's going to make those mistakes. He's Fitzpatrick, and he's going to take those risks, but he's minimizing them, and he's making a lot of really good plays. So I'm excited to see. I hope he succeeds, and I hope they win that division again, and I hope Fitz gets a playoff game and a playoff win, and I love Fitz, so that'll be a fun one.
It definitely will. The first 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, I should say, they're all beyond winnable. I look at those first 4 weeks, and 4-0 seems it's not easy, but it's more than feasible. I mean, the defenses the first 3 weeks are tough. Mm-hmm. The Houston Texans might as well be an arena football team this year. I don't know if they'll win a game. I would guess, based on the circumstances we're seeing right now, Tyrod Taylor is going to be the starter there. So we're talking back-to-back weeks facing off against former Buffalo Bills quarterbacks.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I mean, Deshaun Watson, whether the legal stuff gets cleared or not, he's not a Houston Texan anymore. So you can pretty much pencil in Tyrod Taylor for that one, unless Davis Mills, they bring him up. Who knows? Houston, they'll do anything over there. They'll give DeAndre Hopkins away for a grilled cheese, and they could potentially start Davis Mills. I have no idea what's going on over there. So 4-0, Clay. I got no issue at all.
No, I think 4-0 is completely reasonable. Yeah.
And how ironic that once again it's the Chiefs and the Titans back to back in primetime. Does that sound familiar to you, Clay?
It does sound familiar. I think we went through something last year like that. It wasn't expected, but it happened.
And I believe it was also after starting 4-0.
I think you might be right.
So it's very poetic how this is being mapped out.
Yeah.
As we remember last season, it was out of the chutes with fire blazing off the backs of the Buffalo Bills until a kind of a odd COVID circumstance hit in which they had to go and face the Titans on a Tuesday or a doubleheader Monday? It might have been a Tuesday.
Oh, I can't even remember. I think that one might have been the Tuesday, and then and then Kansas City maybe was
I think Monday, you're right.
Doubleheader could have been the other way around. It was really weird.
And irregardless, it was 2 primetime games back to back in which the Bills lost. The Titans game in particular was the worst game of the year. I mean,
it was game.
God awful.
The defense. I don't think I've seen that defense play that bad in years. And since McDermott, it was the head coach. That was the worst the defense played under his tenure, I think, was in that game.
They couldn't do anything right in that game. And I'm almost positive the Titans starting field position average throughout the game was like the 30-yard line. Like, it was just an unwinnable game from the get-go. And it's the thing is, from there, the Bills, of course, after those 2 losses, they would go on to lose one more off the Hail Mary. So it was really those 2 games that turned the dial on the season for sure. The Bills knew they were good. They got tested and realized, we're not good enough yet, and they really kicked it in gear.
Oh, yeah.
But obviously, of course, the one you circle right out of the gate, Clay, it's Kansas City, a rematch of the AFC Championship in which the Bills, if it weren't for a fumble on the 1-yard line on a punt, were not in the game. It was not close. The Bills could not get to Patrick Mahomes whatsoever, and there was a clear gap between the Chiefs and the Bills. And it was beyond visible in that game, especially when you would go on to see what the Bucs would do to the Chiefs. It was really visible, the difference.
Yeah.
That's the game, Clay. I mean, you look at the first half of the season, that's the one that is just enlarged, popping out of the screen. And that is a Sunday nighter at Arrowhead, 8:20. Sunday nights are my favorite. I think it's the best broadcast out of them all. Al Michaels, GOAT. Collinsworth, love him or hate him. I don't know how. I love him. I'm sorry.
Even if you hate him, you love him.
Of course. Yes. It's like that. If you don't love him, you love to hate him, right? I think that's what it is. I don't know.
Essentially,
I love him. I think it's great. Announcers aside, that's the game, Clay. It's gonna be our first true, not only test, I think, out of the in the beginning of the season, in regard to are the Bills championship contenders. I don't know if the Steelers game proves that. The Chiefs game obviously does. The Bills don't even need to win that game to prove it. The 2 times they played the Chiefs last year, the first one, the score might have seemed close. The game really wasn't close. The AFC championship was not close. Even if the Bills don't win it, they can prove in this game that they have achieved a new level compared to last season that puts them closer to the Chiefs, if not past them.
Yeah. And really the biggest thing that I think Tampa kind of laid out as much of a blueprint as there is to beating that offense. And it's just keeping Patrick Mahomes on the run. And, the Chiefs just revamped. And when I say revamped, I mean completely tore down and rebuilt their offensive line. So it could be better. Their offensive line could be better for all we know. They have so many new pieces that we just don't know how that offensive line is going to be until it's out there. But that could be another reason why edge rusher was an important piece for Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott in the draft, is because the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won that game because of the pressure that they created. And that was from the front four, but not even the front four, but I think every single one of the backups for all one of those starting 4 also contributed. I mean, if you go through and watch, every single one of those guys is just getting to the quarterback. So I think that that's going to be the key to the game, but I think that's going to be the real test for those edge rushers and that defense to see if they can contain that offense, which is it's much easier said than done to contain the Kansas City offense.
Well, I think what the Bucs proved is you have to have one of the best front lines of all time in a Super Bowl to play the way you played against the Chiefs, and let alone that defense in general for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is scary, and it's also young, especially on the back end. Yeah. Shout out to welcome in, my brother. Hope you're doing well. And to everybody else in the comment section, drop your record predictions. Give me what you think is the biggest game outside of the obvious ones. Any dark horse games that you see being a big threat to the Bills or something like that. Let us know in the comments. Of course, also smash that like button if you would be so kind. Now we got Tennessee right after the Chiefs, Clay. I already got my tickets for that one. That's the game where Bills Mafia, for one reason or another, just packs in the car or into the airport and takes. When I say take over, I mean, when we went 2 years ago, all my friends and I went, we took a bus with we met at I forget the name of the bar, but the bar outside of the stadium, you know which one I'm talking about? The little like triangle looking one.
In Nashville?
No, sorry. In Buffalo. Okay. In Buffalo. Yeah, no. You did that one bar of the 1,000 that are in Nashville.
Yeah, I was going to say, but yeah, which bar are you talking about?
The bar, like right when you get out of Bill's Stadium, the one that's on the corner, that's you have to cross the street from the
Abbott and Southwestern.
Yeah, right there, across from the gas station. Somebody knows the name, I'm sure. In the comments.
Might be up there. Prohibition. I can't remember if that's
could be
one of them's Prohibition.
Gun to my head, I'd be deader than dead if I had to know the name of it. But we all met there, hundreds of us, and we took coach buses to Nashville, which I will never do again. Great people, I loved it, but a coach bus to Nashville is not what I would say a comfortable trip. What was comfortable was the trip home because the Bills got out of there with a W, but of course that was against Marcus Mariota and his last stint with the Tennessee Titans. That was before Ryan Tannehill took over the following game, and he hasn't lost the starting job ever since. But Clay, that's a primetime game for us Bills fans to make the trek to Tennessee too. The Bills are going to want to avenge what they know was an embarrassing loss last season.
Yeah. I think there's going to be a lot of motivation for that game. It's at night again. They get an extra day for it. Of course, they probably have less time technically than Tennessee since they play a night game on Sunday the week before. But even still, I think there's going to be a lot of revenge on minds of those Bills players because that was a pretty embarrassing game. And I think a lot of people after that game were kind of saying they're basically just questioning the Bills at that point. It's they went 4-0 and were playing really well. Was that it? Is this going to be like a Ryan Fitzpatrick situation where they start hot and they lose 9 of their last 11 games or something like that? So luckily that was not the case. But I think that that it's going to be a game that a lot of guys in that locker room have circled. I think
a convenient point here that Tilt points out, and it's the truth, is that you got to buy following those 2 games. So you really are able to put your whole effort into those 2 games, knowing that you have a rest in week 7. Week 7, early bye. You start out with 6 games and you play 11 straight following that bye. And an interesting element of this schedule is that before the Bills play any other team in the AFC East, they'll play the Miami Dolphins twice. They'll play the Dolphins out of the gate of the bye at home, and they'll go on a run of 4 straight 1 o'clock games. The first thing that really stood out to me, Clay, because I know everybody, that's what I look for is the primetime games, where they're going to be, who they're going to be against, and what day they're going to be. 4, which is the least amount out of any of the 4 teams that made the conference championships last year. Thought that was interesting, especially because the Bills get crazy ratings in prime time.
And the Cowboys have more.
Oh,
that's the one thing where
the Cowboys could go 0-16. They'll be on Sunday Night Football 3 times. It's whatever. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you know what I like about that is people are sick of that now. It used to be a thing, everybody's okay. You know, the Cowboys are never really that bad, and they're America's team, but dude, now it's not good football. You don't want to watch it in prime time.
Yeah.
And with that division, too, they're usually divisional games.
Yeah. At least Dak will hopefully be playing for this season, and it'll make it a little more interesting. But it's just the NFL is just forcing the Cowboys down our throats, and they have been for forever.
Another interesting thing about the primetime games is you have 2 back-to-back. You don't play one for weeks. Then you have 2 back-to-back again. Then you don't play another one. So that's kind of intriguing. But I know a lot of Bills fans were so accustomed to 1 o'clock games for years because the Bills could never get their asses into primetime. People don't really like primetime. I personally love it. But the 1 o'clock slate, it has a soft spot amongst Bills Mafia. And that's basically all it is this season outside of the Tampa game. And then the 4 prime times, they're all at 1 o'clock. So there's just those fans who love it. That's great.
There's just something different about waking up at 10 a.m. and funneling a beer. It just it hits different, and I think that's why the 1 o'clock games are why we love it so much. You can just get started nice and early. You get it over with. You take a nap. And then, it's a great day. So I like my 1 o'clock games too.
The problem with the prime time is you still funnel the beer at 10 a.m. It's just you got to wait till 8 o'clock.
If you're a maniac,
I think we know that there's plenty of those.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're definitely there will be people that do that. I can't really go 10 a.m. to midnight. That's a little bit long for me. But yeah, that's usually why I don't really like too many home night games, because people there are just ridiculous.
It might be me, especially in Tennessee. It very well easily could be me. I don't know.
If it's in Tennessee, those
Tennessee for me. I'm going with all my college friends who they probably need to get some help, and so we're going out to Tennessee, and the bar scene there. If you haven't been, do yourself a favor. The whole city. It's just one long bar. The whole city is a bar. You go from one bar to the next. You can drink outside. There's bands everywhere. There is nothing to do in that city but drink and listen to music. I mean, I don't know what else you'd really do there. So it's awesome for Bills fans or any fan of, having a good time, I suppose.
Yeah, I think of Nashville as kind of like South Buffalo as far as like culture goes. I feel like it's also it's an up and coming city. A lot of people are moving into both Buffalo and Nashville, and they're big drinkers. They like to have a good time. They like to go to bars. For us, it's all we can do is drink and watch football or cry at hockey, and they drink and listen to live music. So. Yeah. Me and my friends we're thinking about. We've been discussing possibly going to Nashville for years now, and this one's tough because it's a Monday night game. I think we might be going to a different game later on in the schedule.
See, live music. I mean, I go to 20 Dave Matthews concerts every single summer, so I blend in the concert scene with the football scene.
Yeah.
Let me just say that I love it. So Nashville's a perfect spot for a primetime game. I'm very excited, and the jokes are in there. 10 a.m. It is too early to kick it off today. I want to watch the Bills get their revenge against Tennessee in the stadium, not in a bathroom stall of one of these Nashville bars asleep. So we get outside of the bye week, Clay. We have Miami, of course. I think Jacksonville's a very interesting matchup just because we get to see Trevor Lawrence. We get to see ETN. Perhaps we see our buddy Tebow, and we see Urban Meyer go up against Sean McDermott. I think that one, if you want to look at a dark horse game, is one that I think is really an interesting one.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville could, I mean, they're not going to make the playoffs or anything this year. But I think they could potentially win some games against some good teams just because, we don't really know what they have at the moment, just because so many of their pieces are young as a new head coach. So I'm interested to see kind of how that goes with them and how their season starts to play out in the early weeks there.
Then it's against the Jets, and that's just a complete rebuild. There's a reason you can get that ticket for $58. Right. It's the Jets. But it's against Zach Wilson. This is no longer a Adam Gase, Sam Darnold Jets. That's not to say they will be infinitely better. They won't. It'd be almost impossible for them to be a contender. But, the Jets are still a divisional opponent. We have seen the Jets under Adam Gase and Sam Darnold give the Bills games. Obviously, a couple years ago, week 1, the Bills had to win it very, very late. I remember being at that game, and it was at MetLife. That was when John Brown won the game late with an Allen touchdown with a couple minutes left.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, the Bills are obviously far better then, and the Jets went in a completely different direction. But it's a different Jets team, that's for sure. So that'll be our first look at that Jets team. And then it is another playoff rematch. And what's crazy here, Clay, is all 3 playoff games that the Bills, Baltimore. I got Baltimore and Pittsburgh mixed up, but 2 of the 3 playoff games for the Buffalo Bills are on the regular season schedule. One in which, of course, the Indianapolis Colts, the Bills played in the wild card with Phillip Rivers. And I just think the addition of Carson Wentz, they're going to be very, very good this year. I think the Colts are going to be very good this year.
Yeah, so I think they're going to be pretty scary, honestly. Carson Wentz under Frank Reich was playing really good football, and I expect to see some of that again. I don't know if he'll come fully back to what he was, but he's got a much better offensive line now, so that should help him out a lot.
I don't think it gets any cooler than this, Clay. The night game, the primetime game, where every soul in America will be tuning in on Thanksgiving. Once again, it didn't get better than a couple years ago where the Bills took it to the Thanksgiving team, quote unquote, as of course they're quoted as America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. They really ran them out of their own building on Thanksgiving Day. The NFL took note, and they're putting them against the New Orleans Saints in their first year without Drew Brees and what feels like my entire life. This is going to be a whole new year for New Orleans, one unlike they have ever been used to. They don't even know who the quarterback is going to be. Is it going to be Jameis Winston? Is Sean Payton going to try and make Taysom Hill work out? Who knows? But the New Orleans Saints, even without Drew Brees, are still going to be a playoff contender in the NFC in that game. That is as cool as it gets. In New Orleans, one of the best atmospheres in all of the NFL, in front of the entire country. That's a game that everybody will be watching.
Yeah, I think I'm a little upset because I wanted to go to New Orleans.
Me too. I know
it's a really cool city, and I was like, it'd be really cool to go to that New Orleans game. Of course, they put it on Thanksgiving, which is my favorite holiday. So obviously, I'm going to spend that with my family and eat a bunch of food.
Of course.
But I think it's going to be a fun game. I actually don't think the Saints are going to be that good without Breeze there. I think he really kind of held the team together. I think they're still going to win some games. I think they might be close to 500. You can't get 500 unless you tie a game now. But I think they'll be around 500. Just because I think it's going to be Jameis too. Taysom Hill. People forget this. Taysom Hill was a part of the worst quarterback game in this century. Again, it was him against that. I can't remember the guy's name, which I feel bad about. But the practice squad wide receiver who played quarterback for the Broncos that one game. It was him versus Taysom Hill, and that game sucked. I wanted to watch it because I was like, oh, this is going to be cool to see what happens. I had to turn it off after the first quarter because it was just so boring. Nothing was happening. Yeah. I just don't think. I mean, it's a good defensive coordinator with the Broncos there, but I don't think Taysom Hill is is going to be anything of a threat, really. So, but yeah, I'm excited for that game still.
Someone comments this like once a week. It's crazy how we have the reincarnation of Wolfman Jack, and he's a Bills fan. That's referring to me. Look up Wolfman Jack and then think of me if you want to just have an incredible laugh. It is hilarious. Whoever brought that to light, thank you. I looked it up. I about pissed myself laughing. I sent it to my friends. They, of course, loved it. If you can't laugh at yourself, you can't laugh at all. That, my friends, is top tier. The Wolfman Jack, I don't even know who he is. I think he was a radio guy. It's quite hysterical. I think he kind of sounds like me too. I think that's the relation here. He also has a beard. But with a name like Wolfman Jack, I'll take that comparison all day.
That's a great name. Yeah.
Let me look him up here. Actually, I got the web browser right here.
Yeah.
Let's get him up. Wolfman. Yeah, look at him. There he is. Wolfman. Look at this guy. He's basically my identical twin. Wolfman Jack, American disc jockey. Robert Weston Smith, known as Wolfman Jack.
There's no Jack in his name at all.
No, I don't even know how you. Well, I guess he kind of does look like a wolf. I don't know where you get the Jack from. Maybe you like Jack Daniels. Maybe he looks like a guy who could enjoy some Jack Daniels, Clay.
Yeah, I
see the comparison. If you put me next to that guy, I think people would not be able to tell the difference. I mean, look.
Yeah, you got to get some volume in that hair, though.
That's a spitting image of, me and him, and that's,
the face. I could see it.
I think I look more like this version of him.
Honestly, yeah.
Next week I'll be wearing this exact outfit.
You got to do the hair at some point, man. You got to get that hairspray out and really fluff it up.
I think that Jones Mark just delivered my Halloween costume for me, which the Bills do have a home Halloween game, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is at home against Miami. So
that's a good
Bills
one.
Swish the fish. I will be dressed up as Wolfman Jack, or maybe I don't even have to dress up. I already look enough like him, right, Clay?
Yeah, you just got to find a nice, like, old 60s, 70s suit, and you'll be good.
And I got plenty of time between now and October to grow the mullet out, so I'll get some gray hair in there. I'm golden. Okay, back on track with the schedule following the Thanksgiving game. It's the only home primetime game of the year, like you had said, Clay, and it's against the Patriots on Monday Night Football. The Bills were in that same spot against the Patriots last year, and holy crap, was that one of the greatest things I had ever witnessed.
Mm-hmm.
An absolute drubbing of the New England Patriots, and I thought I'd go my whole life without ever having the chance to say that. We got to see it on primetime. Maybe we get to see it again, Clay. I can't wait for that one.
Yeah, that game was surreal, really, to be able to watch a Monday Night Football game and the Bills are destroying the Patriots. It's just not something that you really can take in that much when essentially Tom Brady and Bill Belichick have owned your franchise for the past 20 years.
Jones Mark, yeah, I know it was the voice, but when you look at the face, if it's broke, don't fix it. You got one, you might as well have the other. And I think, like I said, we got the Halloween costume locked.
Yeah, if you shave down the beard to get it like nice and thin right around there.
Although, not to continue to back at this, but dude, that is look, that beard is crisp. I can't.
What is the hair, man?
This guy is awesome, man. I hope he's in Nashville for that Monday nighter.
Is he alive? When was he born?
I could see him.
He died in 1995.
Could you not see him performing at a bar in Nashville? Does he not seem like the type of guy performing at a bar in Nashville?
He absolutely seems like a Nashville bar guy for sure.
Wolfman Jack, I'm sure you're listening. Please show up to Nashville. We'll take a shot. Okay, a shot of Jack. Okay, Clay, this is the one for me. I mean, come on. And I really, if I had the means to bet my life savings on them, the Bills playing the Bucs week 1 in primetime, I would have put it on it. I really had convinced myself that was going to be it.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, Dallas, once again, it's like, of course.
Shoving it down our throats, man.
And that, to me, was just ridiculous. There's so many more. I understand Dak's back. It's Dallas. I get it. But if you know the NFL, you know there's a deep-rooted hatred and connection between Tom Brady and the Buffalo Bills, and it just so happens that the two teams now are two of the best teams in the league. It was just a perfect recipe to open the season, and it didn't wind up happening out, but it still is in a mid-tier type primetime slate. That will be it'll be on Fox since it's NFC. So that will, of course, without question, be America's game of the week. Joe Buck will be on that. Oh, yeah. And Clay, I can't say anything other than I cannot wait for that game. Yeah,
that's the game me and my friends are thinking about going to. We might make that trip down to Tampa, especially, not just because it's December and it's Tampa. Right. But yeah, that is something that if it happens, I want to be there for it. And if it doesn't happen, I will forget that I went there. But yeah, I mean, my biggest fear for that game really is that Josh Allen could realistically be the better quarterback and they could still lose because that Tampa defense is just so good that if they play better than the Bills defense, that could be the deciding factor in the game. So that's kind of my biggest fear is that Josh Allen kicks ass and does really well and we still lose the game.
It's hard to imagine this, but I think Tampa Bay is going to be even better this year. They legitimately brought back every single piece of that Super Bowl winning team. I don't know if there's another Super Bowl winning team in history that can say the same. I mean, it's remarkable what they were able to pull off in the offseason. That's a true testament to Tom Brady and people just wanting to do anything they can to stay within his presence, to chase a ring. It's exactly what happened last year, and it wound up panning out perfectly. And this is the Bills' first, and I would venture the only chance they get to play against a Buccaneer-led Tom Brady unless they face off against him in the Super Bowl, which we were very close to, and I would have absolutely loved. Although the way things went against the Chiefs, I don't know if I would have loved that matchup.
I don't think I would have loved that. If they destroyed Kansas City's line, I don't want to know what they would have done to John Feliciano, man.
I don't even. That would have. It would have. I don't even want to think about that.
Yeah,
but
I'm still worried about it.
We will know in a much lesser setting, Clay.
Yes, not as much pressure. Still a ton of pressure, but not as much. So,
and as you approach the end of the year, look at the end of the season. That's the last litmus test for the Bills heading into the playoffs. I mean, here, this is. I'll bet the house that this is 4-0 right here.
Well, not when they sit the starters against the Jets.
Well, true, but they also pulled the starters for a half against Miami, who's better than the Jets, and they also, I think they scored more. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, that's true. I think they dropped a 50 burger that game. I can't remember.
They did. Isaiah McKenzie scored in every way I think you can possibly score the football. It was unbelievable. I think Tua had 28 picks in that game, if I remember correctly. I might be off on that a little bit.
That was Dean Marlowe, man.
I had so much fun for that game. That was great.
Oh, that was such a great game, man.
But that it really is true because I can't. If for some unforeseen circumstance the Bills wind up being, there's no way they miss the playoffs with 7-team format and an extra game. There's just absolutely no way in hell. It's going to come down to seeding. And I can't think of a better way to end the year if you are in a position to have to go up in seeding. I mean, this is as good as it gets. I mean, we're talking three of the worst teams in the NFL. Well, Atlanta will be better, but no, I won't say that about Atlanta. But Carolina, yes, and the Jets, yes, fair to say. And Atlanta was just not good last year. Obviously, I mean, I think they did get better and they have a new coaching staff and whatever else, but they're not on the level of the Bills. Let's just put it frankly. So, I look at that. I guess this is really hitting me for the first time as we talk through it, how favorable the end of the season is, especially with three of them being at home.
Yeah, that's actually what I was thinking earlier when I was taking a look at the schedule, is that the Bills could potentially control their own destiny after week 14. And from there, whatever your record is, it's like, okay, well, you have a good chance of going and winning these last 4 games. And like you said, that has a lot to do with seeding. So whereas last year they had, they had a few tougher games. I guess they really didn't have that many tough games now that I think about it on the back half. They pretty much just killed everybody.
Yeah, I mean, Denver.
Well, actually, no, that's not true. Yeah, Denver was terrible. San Francisco, very good defense.
Yeah, and San Francisco jumped out to the lead early in that game. Remember the Bills fumbled on their own 1 It was I forget. It was a
Loss.
weird start to that game, but the Bills, they took over at the end.
Oh yeah, I mean I think that was probably Josh Allen's best NFL game so far.
It was great.
He was just hitting everything. All of his passes were crisp. Sorry, there's a motorcycle passing. I don't know if you can hear that. I think it'll be. I think the Bills will be able to control their destiny at the end of the season, which is good because it's hey, go win these games and you can get that 2 seed or hopefully that 1 seed. Hopefully we're still in contention for that at that point in the season.
And it's nice to have that because this right here is a gauntlet. I mean, this really is this is a tough slate right here. Weeks 12 through 14, or 11 through 14. I mean, that's no easy stretch.
I mean, I think New Orleans and New England aren't going to be terrible. I think that those are certainly winnable games. Whereas with the Colts and the Bucs, I think that's kind of a toss up with both of those on who can win. I have to say that the Bucs are the favorite just because their roster doesn't really have holes. So I'm penciling them in as the best team in the NFL this season. No question to me. So Clay, I mean, let's just do a unbiased quick rundown of what we think is going to happen here. I think we'll start right up at week 1 and go through the schedule. You got to remember there's an extra game this season, everybody. The Bills won 13 of them last year. The Bills have one of the easiest schedules in the entire NFL this year. I look at this, we'll go through each one, but tough to imagine they do any worse than they did last year. But Clay, are you cool with marking down 4-0 here? Yeah, I'm perfectly fine with 4-0. 4-0, look, I mean, to me, I got no problem saying that with confidence. Here we go. I want 1-1 here, and I think the Bills can realistically beat Tennessee. Last year was a real fluke scenario. Not that Tennessee was a bad team and the Bills blew it. It was Tennessee's a good team. The way they lost was a fluke. The Tennessee's not that much better than the Bills, and we saw that unfold throughout the rest of the year. But I don't care who you are, 2-0 through this stretch. I don't see it, no matter who it is. I do see one win there, and I don't know if the Bills beat Kansas City. I will believe it when I see it. I'm not ready to say that yet. I have no reason to be ready to say that. But they can beat Tennessee. Yeah, I think they can beat Tennessee. I mean, at the bye week, I would probably be 4-2 at the worst, right? Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I would say I'd feel very comfortable with 4-2. You can give them a gimme loss with either Tennessee, Washington, or Pittsburgh, and then Kansas City is we're not the favorite in that game. I think Kansas City has the better team probably overall. So I would say I'm pretty comfortable with 4-2, and then out of those 3 games with those other tough opponents, Tennessee, Washington, and Pittsburgh, I think you probably lose one of those as well. So are we saying 4-2 or 5-1? What are you most confident with? I feel better with 4-2. You can say 5-1. We don't have to agree on this. No, I look at it and I'll just say this: the floor is 4-2. That's what I'll say. Ideally, Washington is the one team that kind of stands out as like that could be a game where we don't expect that we're going to lose it, but we lose it because of their defense. That's really it. I wonder how many points the Bills will be favored in that one. That's an interesting one. It's a weird one. Yeah, it is. What is Washington, right? You know what I mean? They're a football team. Let's go 4-2. I'm satisfied with that. We'll be unbiased and factor in a potential fluke. You just don't know. And you got to remember, different year this year. We don't know how much of an impact not having fans anywhere was last year. It's full capacity this season. I think away games are going to be really tough early on in the season for every team. I think away teams are not going to win a lot of games early. And right here, it doesn't get tougher than playing an Arrowhead. We know that firsthand. So we'll say 4-2, but we're going to be quickly jacking it right back up to 7-2, Clay. I mean, I just don't see a loss there. Oh no. Yeah, I agree with that. Man, the Colts are I might be way too high on the Colts, but I really have them. I have them up there with the Bills and the Chiefs this year as a team that I really see contending for one of the top 3 seeds. Yep. I agree with that. But we'll look at these 4 games right here. I would say I'd take 2-2 there, Clay. Colts, New Orleans, New England, and Tampa. I'd be beyond satisfied with 2-2 there. I would take 2-2 there. So we'll go 2-2. That's going to put the Bills at 9-4.
And then they're running the table here if the starters are in. So right what I said before we got into going through each game, it's back to 13 wins. And that's with an extra game added in. If you go to Vegas right now and bet on the Bills, they're over under. I think it was at 9.5 to start the year. I think it's up to 10.5. You'd have to be an absolute fool or know something that the whole world doesn't know to think the Bills are going to win less than 11 games going through here. I mean, we were being pretty objective. We're giving them.
Yeah. I mean, that's what, 6 losses, 11. It would be 11 and 6.
It would win 10. So
wait, to go less. Oh,
no, it would be 7 losses.
Where's to show me where the 7 losses are on that schedule? I don't see them,
I mean, there would have to be a real.
Yeah, there'd have to be at least
an injury.
One fluke. Yeah, an injury, one fluke game where they lose to a really bad team, probably divisional. Maybe they lose a game to the Jets or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then you'd have to lose against it's essentially every team that's decent on this schedule because it's not a very tough schedule. So I don't know, saying that they are going to lose 7 games out of that. It's not even so much about like the win total. For me, it's about the loss total. I just don't think that there's that many losses there.
Even if you sprinkle in a couple extra, like maybe a loss to New England, if they,
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. You could even split the division from where we were.
Yeah.
And that would have to get you, to 7 losses. If they somehow ended up splitting the division game somehow.
I look up and down here, and the other thing too, when we're talking about injury, I think the one injury that would derail the Bills the most, obviously, is Josh Allen. I still think Mitch Trubisky led Bills team is one of the better teams in the entire AFC. So
yeah, I'd honestly agree with that. I mean, he
made the postseason multiple times.
He was the MVP of the season. I mean,
you're damn right he was. You are damn right. Nobody can take that away.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a coveted award, and people don't talk about it enough.
Yeah. Most guys, when they enter the league, that's the one they're striving for.
Not everybody can say that their team has a future MVP or an MVP caliber quarterback and the MVP.
Yeah.
Just waiting to get in, maybe never playing a snap.
The only team with an MVP and MVP vote receiver. So
incredible.
Pretty impressive.
And you know what? We don't talk about it a lot because of obviously Josh Allen, and there's no reason to. But when we get into this conversation of, a potential disaster, that's why, in my opinion, it was one of Brandon Beane's best offseason moves. I mean, you can never be too safe. And I don't think anybody thought Mitch Trubisky was going to be shipped off into a backup role with all the QB needy teams and absolutely nowhere. I remember the day the Bills signed him. I had to stare at Adam Schefter's verified symbol for a solid 30 seconds to realize that.
Yeah. It was right before a press conference too.
Yeah.
So we're all like waiting. We're like, oh, it's going to be a Zach Ertz trade. And it was Mitch Trubisky. So I think that was another kind of a shock factor because we weren't expecting it. But the money that they paid for him though, it's such a good deal. I can't believe he signed for that much. I mean, I guess I can see where it comes from, where Brandon Beane, Sean McDermott, and Brian Dable, Ken Dorsey, Josh Allen. I mean, those are all great people to work with, and I really do think he can kind of revitalize his career a little bit if he works with Dable. Not to mention that if Dable leaves and he goes to a team that needs a quarterback, maybe that's his guy. So.
Also, not to mention, if this catastrophe happens, and we're just speaking hypothetically here, if Mitch Trubisky had to come in at some point in this season for an extended amount of time and played well, the Bills are getting something out of him. That is for damn sure. In the offseason following the year, we've seen it happen. Look at the contract Teddy Bridgewater got when he came in a backup position. We've seen it happen multiple times throughout the league. There's a reason Fitzpatrick gets signed all over the place. And the fact of the matter is Mitch Trubisky is a very young quarterback with a potentially bright future with some other team. It's not going to be with Buffalo. Mm-hmm. But if that situation ever happened, and it would be terrible, there is a silver lining there that you can find if it ever wound up coming down to that.
Yeah. And I even think, I don't know, it will be interesting to see what happens if he doesn't see the field. If he does see the field at all, I expect him to play at least better than he did in Chicago. I think they gave up on him in Chicago too fast. So he wanted to come to a program where they drafted a big, strong, raw quarterback and actually put faith in him and put players around him.
What I really hope happens is the Bills are set up at the end of the year where they can rest starters for a couple games.
Yeah.
I'd love to see Mitch Trubisky go out and play the Jets or
Absolutely.
Atlanta.
Yeah, let's see what he's got. Get him some reps, and then if Josh goes down in the playoffs, which would probably be an even worse situation, at least Mitch has a little bit of some game reps in.
Wow, but that would be a reincarnate. Oh, imagine like a Frank Reich situation where he just comes in and it's like, it's
wouldn't that be something
against the Colts or something? Hey, listen, there's a million scenarios, but the one scenario that we don't want is Allen going down at all. I want I want Trubisky in while Allen's on the sideline drinking a pina colada, getting ready for the playoffs.
Yes, yeah, that's the only situation in which I would like to see Mitch Trubisky on the field.
100%. So, all right, Clay, to wrap up the schedule talk here and the show in general, 13-4, I'm confident in saying, and I just don't see any less than 11 at the bare minimum.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, something would have to go really wrong. Like a key player, I think even if Stephon Diggs gets hurt, they can still win a lot of games. Maybe at that point we're getting into that 10-win conversation, but I still think even without Stephon Diggs, they can win games. They have so many good wide receivers. So yeah, I think 13-4 is a completely reasonable expectation.
And like you said, you just go ahead and find me the set, like all odd scenarios aside, an injury or whatever else, just a complete fluke of a season where the Bills nosedive in a way nobody sees coming. Find me 7 losses if the team from last year shows up the way they did. I just you can't find it.
Yeah.
So to put it lightly, it looks promising for the Bills once again, consecutive seasons. And Clay, I am so excited for the season to get underway. It's gonna be great, and with the fans back to celebrate
it's gonna
that
be so
team
nice.
from last year, this year, knowing how the pent up energy amongst Bills Mafia, man, it's gonna be something to. We're always gonna remember that in the 21 season. That's why I hope they are as good as they were last year, if not better, because it's gonna be a special one regardless.
Yeah, and like I said, I think it'll be interesting to see how some of the away teams are playing with crowds. But I mean, I'm excited to be a part of that. The problem when the Bills are playing home games. So I'm excited to be back. I think this is the most optimistic any Bills fan should feel in the last 25, almost 30 years. Probably this is the most optimistic you should feel about this team going into the season for sure.
Totally agree, and I cannot wait. That's going to do it for us on this one. Clay, thanks so much for stopping by, man.
Thank you for having me.
You are the man. And once again, I can't say it enough. And if everybody else hasn't seen it, the most recent work that Clay's done is a dissection of Tremaine Edmonds and his film study. Mm-hmm. Awesome video. Clay does great work with the Fanatics right here, dissecting film. And it's awesome. And his most recent one is on Tremaine Edmonds, and it's a really good watch. So if you haven't seen that yet, get out of here. We're done. Go watch that. And I'll be back next week. And who knows what'll happen in between now and then. It's a boring time within the realm of the NFL, Clay.
Yeah. When's training camp start again?
I don't know, but I can't wait. And I hope it's at St. John Fisher. I don't know what the deal is, but I'm around staring, so I want to get down there. But until next week, everybody, thanks so much for joining on this one. Be safe, stay healthy, and as always, go Bills.
Go Bills.